Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Lucy Superfox Show. You want to say hi? This is Joey. Come and sit down, Joe. And this is Minnie. And Jasper will definitely be hiding in the other room. So today, jumping into what is our kitchen, actually, to dive into this podcast, I felt like what I wanted to share with you guys today was something that wasn't really a sit at my desk kind of vibe. And I'm working on actually creating a podcast space where I can really let myself go and really trust that what needs to be said needs to be said. So welcome back to the Lucy Superfox Show. My name is Lucy Superfox. This is my podcast and channel. These are two of my three gorgeous dogs. So on today's episode, I actually want to talk about something a little bit controversial. I want to talk about your sex life, and I want to talk about the 3 reasons why it sucks. And if right now you listen to this and you're like, mine's great, I feel amazing, I fancy my partner, I want them all the time, I'm deeply fulfilled, then you can turn this off right now. But if actually you're showing up right now and thinking, I don't want it at all, I don't feel like, even though I fancy my partner or my husband or my wife, like I really intimately and deeply love them, actually, I just haven't got it. Like it's just not there. And I think this shows up so much of the time with women. The feeling of obligation, the feeling like they should want it. And it's so easy just to blame hormones. It's so easy just to say, oh, you know what, I don't want it today because I've had a bad day. Or I don't want it today because, you know, it's that time of the month where I just get a bit moody. Or, you know what, there's just too much going on right now and I don't have the energy to be intimate. But that all comes from the energy of it's like a sacrifice. It's something that you have to do. It's something that you should do or something's expected of you. But the whole point of like sex is that that's where the intimacy in a relationship comes in. Now, I'm not saying you can't have intimacy without physical contact. You know, emotional intimacy for me is the foundation of my marriage with my husband. But I think if actually you want your sex life to improve, then what I'm going to share with you today will hopefully help you figure out why it hasn't been and what needs to shift. Let me take you back to 2021 when I was in the full throes of what I would call a nervous breakdown, where I was burnt out, emotionally fried, felt disconnected from so much of my life and felt like I didn't even belong. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know who I was. I had no emotions most of the time. You know, I was sleeping 12-hour days. And in the depths of that, my now husband still loved me immensely and deeply and held space for me. And the truth is, not everybody's partner has that levels of compassion and depth because of their own reasons, their own growth, their own lessons, their own healing. But I was in a fortunate position where that was the case. And so what that really allowed me to do was it created space for me to heal. It created space for me to allow myself to feel how I really felt and move through it. But what we weren't doing in that time was having a lot of sex, because the last thing I wanted to do in the depths of experiencing all of my emotions and what was going on for me was make myself more vulnerable and open myself up to more intimacy. At that point, the dominant emotion for me, and this is what happens to women who are in burnout, what happens to women who feel like they've lost their identity, or women who are going through chronic periods of stress, is that often the dominant emotion that comes up is actually shame. And this is the number one reason. So there are 3 reasons I'm going to share with you today why your sex life sucks. And the number one is the energy of shame. We have been projected on as women our whole lives that we should do this. We should be good girls. We should behave. We should chase like men do if we want to be successful. We should. We have been projected on other people's expectations our entire life. Compounded with then us wanting to be high performing, high achieving, highly successful, wealthy, ambitious women, we then should all over ourselves. I should be this, I should be that, I should be thinner, I should be richer, I should be more successful, I should be further ahead by now. And so then when we think about sex, we think, oh, I should have more sex. I should make more time for my partner. I should be more intimate. I should give them more love. Should. And the energy of shame is so insufferable. I feel, the way I describe the energy of shame is like it suffocates me. It makes me go in on myself, like turn in on myself. And look, shame is a useful emotion. I've said this before. I said to my therapist once, I said, why does shame exist? It feels so shit. And she said, so that you learn your lessons and don't do it again. But the problem is shame is so chronic for so many of us because we've never allowed ourselves to really feel the depths of shame. We've never allowed ourselves to get into the root cause of where the shame was created, that the shame just becomes this chronic state, this chronic energy, our chronic default setting. And so when it comes to being intimate or having sex, when shame is your default setting, Let's face it, those two things don't necessarily gel together, because the energy of shame is one where we're unsafe. It's one where we're not good enough. It's one where we're in trouble, or we fucked up, or we're not right, or we've done something wrong, right? And actually, that energy is going to make you go in on yourself. It's going to make you want to protect yourself, to soothe yourself. This is where if you end up in a shame spiral about something, whether or not you got drunk and said something silly, or been there, or whether actually you actually made a mistake. And, we're human. And I always say mistakes are part of transformation, but it doesn't make them any less triggering when they happen, especially if there's deep wounding there around being a good girl or not getting in trouble. Things I've had to work on massively. But when you end up in a shame spiral, what often happens is this is where your behaviors, like your emotional eating, your emotional drinking, your binge watching TV, your workaholism, will all show up to avoid the feeling of shame. And then those behaviors take you even further away from that want to be intimate, that want to be yourself, that safe to be yourself, that safe to embody your deeply feminine sexual energy. It takes you away from all of that, because those behaviors are, one, helping you avoid how you really feel, which in that moment is shame, which in itself is insufferable, but then leading you down a path away from feeling anything at all. So when we're numbing ourselves out with food, with drink, with workaholism, with scrolling social media, with TV, whatever it is, we're not allowing ourselves to be in our body, right? We're jumping out of our body into these behaviors. We're trying to create what's called regulation when we do these behaviors, but what we're actually doing is just numbing ourselves out. We're actually just intentionally putting ourselves into freeze mode. Because the feeling of being in shame, of that insufferable feeling, is so uncomfortable, and we've never learned to experience it and process it. So we end up jumping out into these behaviors, and those behaviors then send you even further away from wanting to be intimate, because you're gaining weight, or you always feel a bit shit because you're always hungover, or you're comparing yourself on the internet to all the skinny, thin people and their romantic husbands, right? And so we end up in this vicious cycle of then blaming the reason we don't want to have sex on the fact that we don't feel confident in our own skin, or that our hormones are up shit creek, or that we're too busy or we're too stressed. But yet we're not allowing ourselves to really feel into how we really feel about anything. So how would we know that that is the reason that we didn't want to have sex? How would we know? So shame is the number one thing. And in my experience of being a root cause therapist, shame is the number one emotion that gets expressed inside root cause therapy. It's the number one thing that comes up over and over and over and over. And the number one thing that when clients experience it, the tears that come inside root cause therapy are so cathartic for them, and so you can just see the relief finding its way through their body. You can see their body just going like a big exhale. Because shame is one of those things that, because it's so insufferable, we'll always do everything we can to avoid it. So a lot of people spend their whole life pushing against shame. So I'll be successful so I don't have to feel shame. I'll be thin so I don't have to feel fat. I'll make money so I don't have to feel broke, right? So they're pushing against the energy of shame, the energy of avoidance, rather than the energy of desire. So I'd really love to make more money, or I'd really love to be fitter and healthier, or I'd really love to be, at that next level in my business. And so the difference in those energies, one, shows up massively in your manifestation game, but definitely and primarily shows up in how safe you feel to be yourself. And if you don't feel safe to be yourself because yourself isn't good enough or not worthy, because there's this underlying energy of shame, right, which is basically saying you're wrong, right? So guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm not enough. And, there's something wrong with me is a belief that so many women carry. Funnily enough, they're women with chronic illness. Not surprising, those two things are correlated, right? And you could absolutely say one precedes the other, but you could also say it in reverse. What if the constant chronic underlying belief of something, what if something's wrong with me, or there's something wrong with me, what if that was driving chronic illness? What if it was the other way around? And so when there's this chronic underlying belief of this underlying feeling of shame that's being driven by beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm not safe, it's not safe to be me, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. And you will be shocked. I have had some incredibly capable, confident, successful, powerful women through my doors in root cause therapy who are holding on to these beliefs, who have created success and abundance and wealth from pushing against these feelings of shame, but they keep creeping up and they keep catching them out and they keep triggering them and they keep finding themselves back in the same spot. And that's why they end up with me inside root cause therapy. But that's where the transformation happens, when you get to the root cause belief and emotions and you process them. So if underlying you have this energy of shame running through your veins and you're shame spiraling every time you feel triggered, whether it's in how you look, whether it's in how you dress, whether it's in how successful or how much money you make, and it's not safe to be you, that is your number one sign that is going to be impacting your sex life. It's going to be impacting your ability to feel safe to express yourself, to be in that beautiful divine feminine that's trending the internet right now. You have to be fully embodied. And if you are avoiding a part of yourself that feels shameful or feels not good enough, and it doesn't feel safe to be you, then of course you are not going to want to be vulnerable and intimate with somebody and allow somebody to see you and, almost, I'm going to say it, have you or be with you in that intimate way if actually it isn't safe to be you, right? And so this is where doing the deep work, the work we do inside root cause therapy, is such a game changer, because one, we're clearing those root cause beliefs, getting to the root of them and clearing them energetically speaking, but we're also clearing those emotions by helping them process, by helping ourselves experience them in real time in a safe environment, allowing those emotions to close the loop so that we can move through these triggers rather than them taking us out of the game every single time. The number two reason that your sex life sucks is stress. And sure, day-to-day stress, like getting the kids to school on time and, getting the commute done and the amount of work you've got, plus running a family, plus running a house, mortgages, bills, 100% all valid. But the stress that I'm talking about is the chronic stress that lives like it's alive inside your nervous system. The chronic state of fight or flight, and then actually into freeze. The chronic state of avoiding feelings like shame and guilt by overcompensating and overgiving. The chronic feeling of like you can't relax, it's never enough, it's never done, especially this time of year. This podcast is going out in December, and I know right now there are so many people who are caught up in all the things they have to get done by the end of December, that they have to get done ready for the new year, that they should be this and they should be that, right? Shame running the show. But they're in this chronic state of inability to relax, this inability to sit with themselves and just allow themselves to enjoy and to be. And that chronic stress that lives inside the nervous system will, one, create massive and radical dysregulation in terms of your mood, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, most likely gut health, hormonal health. So you're going to be seeing that constantly show up in symptoms that are then going to impact your libido. They're going to impact your physiological desire to want to be intimate simply because there is a chronic state of dysregulation. If you think about sex, the primary reason that, and again, we could get into evolution and God theories here, but the primary reason that sex exists is for procreation, right? That was its main purpose, was procreation, followed secondary by pleasure, or you could flip it on its head, but on the whole, procreation, when we're talking about a heterosexual relationship. So if that's the case, then a woman particularly is most likely to only be able to enjoy herself when her body feels safe, right? She's only going to be in the position to enjoy herself when her body feels safe in order to receive. Safe to receive that sperm that then would cause her to procreate, right? Or to get pregnant. And so if a woman is feeling chronically stressed, chronically dysregulated, it means the body doesn't feel safe. If the body is constantly triggered and activated into that high stress state, into that always on, gotta keep moving, gotta keep doing, adrenaline junkie, workaholic vibe, right? And if that's you, I am talking straight to you, then of course you have no sex drive. Of course you have no hormones. Of course your neurotransmitters are upside down, even if your blood tests look fine. Because what's happening is a chronic state of dysregulation where you are disconnected from your body, where you're trying to use your head to run the show. One of the things I see so much with my clients is they think if they understand why something happened or how something happened, then they'll be safe. And I used to do this. I used to think, well, if I understand why that person said that thing, or I understand how my hormones work, then I'll understand why I have no sex drive. But understanding something and experiencing something are completely different. Understanding something is a head game. But whenever has understanding that healthy food is better for you than chips and burgers and donuts and bottles of wine, when has that ever caused somebody to lose weight? Never. When someone understands why being slim, fit and healthy is so much better for their longevity and feeling great, does that make them lose weight? Nope. Right? So it's never about the how and the why. It's about how we feel inside our bodies. And when we're up in our heads in this chronic state of overthinking, ruminating, worrying, we're not in our body. And when we're not in our body, we're not connected to our body. We're not connected to our pleasure centers. And we're not in that energy of being able to feel safe to be ourselves. And one of the biggest misunderstood things about intimacy from a physical perspective is it is about connection. It's about a deeply vulnerable, open space where two of you are your most raw, right? And if actually in that moment you feel you need to jump out of your body and be up in your head, that is why, one, there won't be any pleasure, but why, two, you've got no low libido and no sex drive at all, right? Because if you're always up in your head, you're never in those pleasure centers. So being able to have great sex or being able to feel safe to be intimate comes with feeling safe to be yourself. But the hugest part of that is bringing the body back into a state of regulation. And you know, there's so much banded around right now about nervous system regulation, like it's something to do on a fucking Saturday at 11 o'clock, right? Like, that's not what this is. This is about building a nervous system that's flexible, that can handle stress, that can handle big moments. Like, it's not about being calm all the time, that can handle difficult experiences and triggers and echoes, and then bring itself back to baseline, and then go through its emotional experiences and regulate. And when it comes back to regulation and it feels safe to be inside your body, that is when you'll tap into and connect to that real like energy of desire, that womb space desire. And the third reason your sex life probably sucks is suppression. That you've spent a lot of your life not expressing yourself, not sharing how you really feel, not knowing how to be or what to say or how to process. You know, you were probably the strong one. You were probably the one that people didn't worry about at all. You were the one that probably took care of everybody else. You were probably a high performer, high achiever, highly intellectual, or you strive for those things. You probably spent a lot of time being a caretaker, whether that's to somebody close to you or in every relationship dynamic you've ever had. And as a result, you've suppressed how you really felt about a lot of things because you've put other people ahead of yourself because that is what you believed you should do or was the right thing to do. Or you've done it because actually you really love this person and value them and don't want to lose them. But rather than feeling safe to believe that they chose you, you probably don't feel chosen. You probably don't feel adored. And that doesn't mean that's on your partner. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes that's on you. Because if you're not choosing you, because every single time you have the chance to choose you suppress how you really feel, you push it down, you walk away from it, you don't express yourself, because let's face it, in the world we live in, sometimes it's not safe to express yourself. Cancel culture is big. If you share how you really feel, also sometimes you'll really hurt someone's feelings. And if you're a kind, good-hearted person, you don't want to do that. But if you don't have the outlet and the space, like inside a therapy, like inside a modality, to express how you really feel, you're going to be pushing down and bottling those emotions and those energies. And that's going to be driving further that dysregulation. It's going to be driving a body that you don't trust. It's going to be driving feelings and unknown symptoms and behaviors and patterns that you just can't seem to stop because you're not allowing yourself to feel how you really feel. And when women suppress how they really feel, they become even more disconnected from their body. They become so disconnected from their divine and embodied feminine. They're caught up in this masculine energy of hustle, of do more, of perform, of achieve. They're not in that energy of like surrender and softness and warmth. But a woman in her deeply feminine does not mean she has to be with a man. It doesn't mean she has to be in that dynamic in order to have great sex. But what it means is she has to feel embodied in her power. And if you are suppressing how you are really feeling because you're feeling angry and rageful and upset and shameful and confused and lost and disconnected because you didn't grieve for the death of that person, because you never processed actually that when your business fell apart that it almost killed you, for the fact that, you know, you thought that people were going to do this thing for you and didn't, or that people let you down, or that you've been trying to lose weight for 20 years and it just doesn't happen. When you're suppressing how you really feel, you're disconnecting yourself from your power and from that embodied divine feminine. And so as a combination of one, this chronic level of shame that we live in, this chronic environment of shaming people and manipulating people and blaming people, chronic stress and dysregulation that's not allowing you to relax into your body, and three, being in the energy of suppression and not expressing yourself, those three things are going to tank that sex drive right off a cliff. And so if you really want to get to the root cause of these things and shift them so that you feel like you can live in from this energy of like desire rather than this energy of avoidance, so that sure, you feel shame, but you move right on through it, that you can bring your body back into this state of calm and create more regulation in your life so you can handle more, you can attract more, you can be more. And because you're done suppressing yourself, and this is where root cause therapy is fucking magic. Some of the testimonials I have, you can find them on the page lucysuperfox.com/RCT, are insane. But I want to tell you about a particular transformation that was to do with sex. So this one client had been burnt out for an extended period of time. She'd done a lot of work on herself and she knew she was coming through the other side and ready to build her business again. She had to take some time out because, again, she'd felt the shame triggers. She'd been in a shame spiral. She wasn't sure what to do. She'd questioned everything. She was in a position where she was in a supportive relationship. And so she was able to move through, but she just felt like she was just constantly in this state of not wanting to have sex, of wanting to shut away, of, either doing it just for him or because actually she thought that she should. And after one session of root cause therapy, it unlocked something in her she hadn't felt for years. And that is simply because in that session, we processed what was making it unsafe for her to be her. We allowed her to feel safe in her body and to process the shame. And actually what was funny was the shame was really present in her womb space. We were able to clear that energy and move through it so that she could embody that divine feminine and connect into that power inside her relationship. So she felt safe to be intimate again. She felt safe to be deeply connected. So the truth is, if your sex life sucks, then it probably isn't just your hormones. If you really want to shift this, and this is the thing, not everybody wants a banging sex life. Not even, some people don't even care about sex. And so if that is you, then I'm surprised you've listened to the whole video. But if that is you, then these are the 3 things that are causing the reason why you are not embodying and embracing that sex life. Not because you need a new position, not because you need a hormone booster, not because there's something wrong with you or you're broken, but simply because there are things to process around emotions like shame. There is likely chronic stress and dysregulation moving through your system and not allowing you to be connected to your body. And most importantly, you're probably suppressing how you really feel about things that have nothing to do with sex, and maybe sometimes to do with sex, but that are not allowing you to step into who you truly are. And when we're not truly who we are, we're not alive, we're not authentic, we're not genuine, we're not embodied, we're not powerful, and we definitely don't want to feel like being intimate. So if you resonate with this podcast, I'd love for you to share it with someone else. One of the most healing things we can ever do for anybody is allow them to feel seen. So when you share, when you like, when you subscribe this and other people get to feel seen and heard by my words, then you also help them heal too. So I hope this episode resonated. If you're curious about root cause therapy, you can find out more on the link below and you can book a free discovery call to find out how it might work specifically for you. So I hope you loved it. The doggos are fast asleep and I'll see you on the next episode.